This is what you've seen the last 5 and 10 years.
Initiative for global development. Your focus is on infrastructure. I'm more, critical about power. Because in Africa, we have so many issues, with production, how you power your production. So how do you think IGD can help small business owners, young entrepreneurs in Africa on that?
Okay. Well, let me come back to what I was saying earlier. We always had trade and commerce in Africa. What we didn't have until the last 5 and 10 years is industry. What does industry mean? It's called value addition. It's meaning adding value to the whatever products, whether it be farming products, whether it be manufactured products. You have to add value. To add value, you need power. You cannot produce without power. That's why that was the single most critical element in the growth of the continent. This is why the focus, whether it be Power Africa, the U.S., or the New Deal with the African Development Bank. But the key is you have to set the conditions for power generation, power distribution, so people have power. Now that could be on-grid, it could be off-grid. One of the advantages coming very late to development is that technologies have improved incredibly. Solar is very competitive today. Sure. So really off-grid solutions are no longer dream pipes anymore, or pipe dreams rather. They're real potential uses and applications of power generation, right? So with that is where we're seeing now the growing potential. And that distributed power, if you will, off-grid, allows now all kinds of small business to start up. Because what is the key issue? And it's part of the whole growth. I keep always saying, you can't trade regionally bananas for bananas. Somebody has to make fruit out of banana, somebody else has to dry chip banana or produce other fruit. So we have something to be trading. Part of the reason we weren't trading before, because we were producing the same thing. Now as you start adding value and manufacturing different directions, you start producing different things. And I'll specialize in food production, you might specialize in construction, materials, whatever it might be, then we have things to trade. But the key is always the size of markets. There's a reason why Nigeria puts out big companies. It's a big market. What is a little Benin or Togo? They have to come together in real economic pacts. And I don't mean just announcements and declarations. You have to be able to move product and services across borders in a free way so you can scale up and be competitive. So that's what it's all about. The industry starts small. For us, we take big pride, not only in dealing with the big companies, we have big companies that are also members, but with really big focus, what I call the aspiring S's, that want to be the M's. That's where all the jobs are created. The growth is when the small becomes a bit larger and gets to medium. That is where all your growth, that's where your new jobs have been created. 80% of jobs have been created by locally born companies. This is really where all the growth is. When we say inclusive, that's inclusive. And for that to happen, you have to have industry. To have industry, you have to have power. And to be able to be competitive, you have to scale. To be able to scale, you need a larger market. So this is how the political and the infrastructure components come in. But it's not just power. Remember, it's roads, it's movement of product, harbors, airports, it's all of the infrastructure facilities, warehousing. Probably the biggest gap and also the biggest opportunity right now is in logistics and transport. The ability to warehouse, move. Go outside Baltimore, go outside U.S. cities, outside port. What is the biggest thing you always see? The warehouses, the logistics, the transport, the highways, the U.S., China, any place you go. What is it we don't have enough in most of the African countries? Warehouses, logistics, movement of products. Try to move product from Lagos to Abuja and see what you run into.
Thank you, Dr. Mima. You mentioned a very critical area in your previous interviews, that let's talk about the good news about Africa and stop the myth. And this is part of my focused area. What are the things that interest you right now in Africa economy?
Okay, the good news is, and it's also being driven, as I said earlier, by the urbanization. You're having more and more people living in urban areas now. That creates problems, that creates opportunities. when you have a Lagos with 20, 25 million people. You know, those folks are no longer going back to their village to get their food. You can't bring in a 50-kilo sack of rice anymore into the average-sized apartment in Lagos. So things are packaged. Packaging is industry. So it's urbanization itself that is really also both creating the problems and creating opportunities for business to solve the problems. And this is where that local business relationship is so important. And you know, I keep focusing on Lagos, but you got Abidjan, you got Nairobi, you got Kinshasa, I mean, Luanda, Addis. I mean, these are all huge cities. There's two myths. One myth that everything is, you know, Africa's growing, and the other myth is Africa's not growing. And then there's people talk about Africa going sideways. The answer is all three are happening. There are, you mentioned 17 countries, 15, 18, depending on how you define it, but there are more and more getting it right that are growing. There are, unfortunately, we have to be also realistic, all kinds of conflict zones, the South Sudan, some of the Congos, you know, CAR, the Somalia, where things are stuck. I mean, and getting maybe worse. I mean, let's be real too. But, you know, we then go back to those political leaders, so why is it stuck? When are we going to get real and start joining the rest of the world in inclusive growth? So when we say sideways, very few really are sideways. You know, sideways is a little bit the average. In fact, some are growing and really getting it right, and some are not. So what we hope, and our whole advocacy, our whole, you know, mission of IGD is to say those countries and those business sectors and those political environments where there's right for us to be able to grow, we should celebrate, we should encourage it, we should continue to invest in it, both externally and internally, and make that growth. Then people say, well, but you know, that then creates bigger differences. And my answer is yes, it does. But then let the politicians and the policymakers in places that haven't got it right, let social media go berserk. Let their people say, how come we're living like this? Look what's happening next door. The brothers and sisters are living very well. That's the key. The average people got to get through media to the political leadership and say, guys, some things that need to be done so that we can grow.
So that we can grow and, you know, move forward.
We got to move forward. You got to move forward.
Dr. Mima, let's talk about Frontier 100 Leaders Forum, which priorities is to transform Africa economy. I'm so interested and keen about that. What is the focus?
The focus in the Frontier 100, again, keep in mind, more than half of them are African business leaders, born and started. And it's in the cross, I mean, you have the big ones, you got the Dangotes and the Lobos, you've got the big people. But the big focus is also making sure that we're grabbing up also the small and medium-sized companies in there. Because for every Dangote, there are thousands of others that are growing in that arena. You know, the Dangote was one of the very early first ones that built up from trading into industry. And it wasn't cement. Cement came after. It was a sugar mill. It was a sugar refinery in Apapa. We were involved in the very end stages of my previous company, Schaefer, in doing the final engineering on it. But the key was that there was enough stability, he was interested in reinvesting. And now you're investing in more countries, cement and other areas. But that's one side. How is he growing? He's growing by subcontractors. He's spinning out trucking companies, spinning out also suppliers. So you see, in the end, what we tell the governments and policymakers, we say, mind the middle. Because what will happen, the small, you know, in that big spectrum between Dangote and Lady with their 2 tomatoes in the market, her 2 tomatoes, she's not going to move the needle. Somebody's going to aggregate her, more ladies, more tomatoes until they start producing, manufacturing, processing tomato, and you become small, big, small, medium. How do the huge companies grow? They grow by spinning out contractors, sub-suppliers. So in the end, we find ourselves all in the middle. It's all about the middle. Mind the middle. That's what we tell policymakers. Mind the middle. Your people, the industries that are growing. What can we do as policymakers to make our own industries more competitive? Is it helping with infrastructure, power and roads? Is it fiscal incentives? Is it training, big issues, skills? The human capacity, both at skill side, middle management, and upper management. One of the biggest issues for most of our company leaders. You know, at our forum in Durban, the theme the full day across is all about skills, jobs, employability. What do we do with this youth bulge of people coming out? They have to be coming into jobs, and not everybody's an entrepreneur. Those that are, We help them become entrepreneurs so they can hire others. But the key is to really grab and make value of the human resource that is being coming out, to be really trained for the kind of work that we need today. Maybe it's apps, maybe it's applications and technology. It's across the board. It's agripreneurs, it's a factory of the floor moving from China to Africa, it's tech and applications, it's all of those, but it's being driven by population growth, coming right back, urbanization, problems urbanization causes, creates all kinds of opportunities. And there you have it. That's the business solution.